Aklımızda bir soru var. İnsanlığın en büyük merakı 300 bin yıldır bu sorunun içinde saklı. Acaba ufukta neler var? Bize keşfetme cesareti veren bu soruyu ülkemizin geleceği için soruyoruz. Güneş ufuktan nasıl doğacak? Sıfır karbon dünya hedefiyle iklim sorunları için fikirler ekiyoruz. Bilinmeyen ufka bilimle yelken açıyoruz. Türkiye'nin dijital devrimini, ekonomide banka ve fintechlerin yeni stratejilerini konuşuyoruz. 2023'e doğru 2050 ufkuyla Cumhuriyetimizin yol haritasını çiziyoruz. Türkiye'ye ve dünyaya yön veren, ufkumuzu genişleten 53 konuşmacı. 1-3 Haziran'da 21. kez düzenlenen Forum İstanbul 2023 konferanslarında. Siz de takip edin. Ufukta neler var? Birlikte arayalım.
Dear guests, dear spectators who are watching us before their screens in their houses or wherever they are, we would like to first of all thank our sponsors, Turkish Industrial Bank, Turkish Exporters Association, Turkish Telecom, Denizbank, APS, Green for Growth Fund, Gülsan, Dünya Newspaper for the live broadcast, ÖZGÜR, and also Bersay Communication for the media relations sponsor. We would like to welcome you all to our last session of our Forum Istanbul 2023 conference.
Follow the conference in English in Forum Istanbul 2023 YouTube channel. Bu bölümün ilk sohbetine geçmeden evvel hatırlatmak isterim.
Before we switch into the first session of today, I'd like to remind you of that. By using FI 2022 hashtag, you can ask your questions and send your comments to us. And by clicking www.forumistanbul.com website, you can reach the details of the conference program. And we have also Forum Istanbul 2023 conference social media accounts that we share instant information about our event. Please do not forget to follow our social media accounts. Today's Turkish talk session, we have ÖZGÜR, BtcTurkish board member and CEO, and Selçuk Ergen, and I'd like to invite the CEO of ÖZGÜR to the stage in order to have their Turkish coffee chat, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Brokerage firm, investment banking, so I'm actually a financial-based transfer to this sector, not a technology-based transfer, but in a sense I worked in Finance Bank Group at my previous workplace for many years. So frankly, we had a business model of providing fast, reliable and convenient access to traditional financial instruments. And I can say that when you define the event as providing access to new generation financial instruments in a fast, comfortable and reliable manner, it seems like there hasn't been much change in the industry. But of course, behind that, both its dynamics and its area of development, its technology and its perspective have been talked everywhere until today. And I can see that very clearly. This is a place where there is no borders 24/7, and I'm glad I'm really here. So you recommend it to young people? Yes, I recommend it, because learning new generation technologies, at least following these new trends, even if you don't work professionally in the sector, this is something that is really precious. So as of this moment, our market is very active right now. Many companies are trying to enter into our country. There is this hype in Turkey. Approximately there is stock approximately 100. And if you define BtcTurk with numbers so that everyone can understand your place more clearly, yes, of course, with pleasure. In fact, I think it is necessary to look back a little more to understand where BtcTurk is now. Turkey is first and the world's fourth cryptocurrency platform, Bitcoin trading platform, and Bitcoin has been around for 13 years and we've been around for about 9 years. So if you equate it with banking, here is 400 years of banking. We've been here for 350 years of or so. So that's why there is actually an incredible amount of knowledge in BtcTurk. After the first Turkish lira transaction took place on July 1st, 2013, we are right now completing our 9th year on this year. So that's why in such a dynamic sector, I think it is very valuable to achieve an accumulative knowledge of 9 years, especially with a Turkish brand. I think this is really precious. If you remember the previous years, the bull market between 2013 and 2017, it was a period when Bitcoin reached $20,000 and everyone was talking about Bitcoin. And in the next decline, just like these days, there were some statements such as Bitcoin is over. It was already clear that it would be like this. BtcTurk actually gained significant experience in this range. Yes, we made mistakes and we learned out of our mistakes and we invested in the technological things. Therefore, we think this accumulation has a very important contribution to us today. After I joined at the end of 2017, as a team, we believed even more in the future of this business. So we actually made a very serious investment and we did it in main 3 pillars. One and the most important thing is natural human source, because when you bring technology and financial service together, human resources occupy a very important place like many other sectors. And the other one is the corporate infrastructure, technological infrastructure of the company. Thirdly, of course, our brand. We saw the results of this big investment in 2018, 2019, in the years 2020, 2021, when everyone was talking about the new cryptocurrency Bitcoin, which we call bull market again. Our daily average transaction volume of $6 million in 2019 increased to $60 million in 2020, and we closed it with an average daily transaction volume of approximately $600 million in 2021. So when I joined the company, there was 8 people, but right now there are approximately 800 people working for BtcTurk, together with our support team, friends in Van, Uşak, many different cities in Turkey. There are a lot of employees working for BtcTurk, and they are very much adapted to technology. So we are extremely happy with this, and we have around 5 million registered users. I think our application is running over 4 million smartphones. So therefore, in terms of scaling, we are one of the important financial institutions of technology institutions, not only in our field, but also in Turkey. Of course, we see the impact of these investments we made in the last 7-9 year period globally. We continue our activities as an important brand in the world, both as a brand and when we look at the cooperation areas, especially technology in various fields. And of course, it gives us another pride in continuing this as an initiative originating from Turkey. So the interesting thing is that we have a similar situation in terms of fintech from few countries around the world. From the crypto side, there is great potential. It is clear that it will progress further. Do you have anything abroad on this subject, or what can you say about the business in Turkey of an American stock exchange that has recently been reported? Now, of course, I can say that in this 9-year period that I just mentioned, both in terms of transaction volume and technological infrastructure, we are the global importing, so we are at a very highest level due to the nature of the business. So when we combine all these, of course, there is very serious interest over BtcTurk due to its position in Turkish market, especially from foreign investors. Our vision and goal is a little bit more. I think there are many places to go in the field of financial technology that you mentioned in Turkey. Exactly. Even if we divide it into traditional finance and new generation finance in general, I can say that when we look at its essence, I observe that Turkey lags behind other technological developments in the field of fintech. Therefore, especially I come from a financial background, I feel as someone who has sat on the other side of the table for many years and experienced what we can achieve with technology here at BtcTurk. And together with our team, we actually want to apply this new generation financial services perspective to traditional financial products. We have a vision. We want to start this first in Turkey and do it together with its technology, with the software we developed, and then we want to multiply it globally. In a sense, I call it self-service new generation financial services, as I said before. And one of the most important points here is that it's actually self-service, because now many users in the world want to access the data, assets, services, and products whenever they want, wherever they want. Nobody wants to consume ready-made products in the day, hour, or process imposed on you. Therefore, we think that it is very important to bring the perspective to financial services, and there's an important opportunity here. Well, then something like this can be said. People actually turn into a bank, and you are positioned on the systems that will mediate this. It seems like this sense of the job is going toward this direction. Yes, that is correct. I always consider finance or traditional financial services under several headings. So what we do is what we do as simple individuals. We can have money at work, we earn it, let's say we work, we try to save it, we try to spend it, and we invest it, we use credits, loans whenever we need, and during this time with through various financial institutions, we hide our assets, or they hide our assets on our behalf. So although we do this very job with such large capitals, this service we offer in its essence is simple as a world of financial services, especially for individuals. So it's a self-service way by excluding processes such as costs and complications. This is exactly how BtcTurk works today. For example, we never give advice to someone like, here is the Bitcoin time, buy its time, or it will drop from here, sell it. We don't have such a sales team. We have reached 5 million users without any of our sales team. We do not give them any recommendation for investment. We do not direct them to any kind of investment, but we aim to offer them all the opportunities that they can decide on their own or take action when they decide in a very simple and transparent way. I think this is really a successful model, and that it will have a very serious response both in the future and in the global census. In Turkey and in the world, there are many people who receive service in those parties, whether it is banking applications or stocks or different financial services, but it is not easy to get rid of complexity of that world and provide a simple experience in front of them. So that's the direction we want to go in the medium and long term. I think one of the best things about BtcTurk is that the interface, it's really simple. What's my access, what's my asset, how much I earned, how much I spent, and it could be seen very easily. Other banks don't do this. It's interesting. Well, actually, because I said about the vision, the point of view is really important. I mean, people can get easily lost among their daily jobs. I also think that in my previous job, I was thinking that there should be more data, everything, more information. If necessary, we should be explaining to customers, but technology has brought us such a point that we need simplicity because we have to make millions of decisions every day. Also, although the technology structure and infrastructure of the company is very complex or large or big or complicated, at the very essence, we find our work as very simple. In other words, deposit, withdraw, buy and sell, and safely store assets during the time. Actually, this is a very simple value proposition in our job. Therefore, it is a little difficult for companies to reach the simple point of view. Since we think that it works in Turkey, it can also function globally. We now want to expand it into different financial services and offer this simpler self-service service structure to different products and services. Then it turns into this. Actually, it turns out that we have this misunderstanding about Bitcoin and blockchain. I mean, there is another world out there other than just trading and making money. Absolutely. We can say that we are trying to open up a little more. Yes, exactly. And the short-term trading, it could be sometimes benefits, profits, but it could be also harmful for some people. But in essence, when you do not know what you are investing in and which investment philosophy you invest, I think this latest Nasdaq is around 30% below, and many companies are 70 to 60 or 80%. And in one day, I mean, just a social media giant lost 45% of its stock. So we talk about volatility, especially with the pandemic. Volatility has grown even more with the issues of money. So volatility has increased globally. Therefore, people also have a need to protect their assets. But when these technologies change, one of our missions for us um, I remember the email. Unfortunately, I remember those days when the email first came out and how the email account was set up. It was really difficult, but now you have applications on your smartphones. You specify a name, you define surname, you define and choose your email address. You can have an email account with 3 or 4 clicks. Therefore, we as technology need to take a step forward, not only in terms of the background, but also in terms of increasing adaptation, in terms of knowledge, in terms of presence and diversity, and most importantly, in terms of simplicity, we have to take some steps. It's actually very easy to store Bitcoin right now, but for many people, there are technical difficulties such as setting up an email account in 1990s. So we need to take some steps on that side so that people can adapt themselves easily and barriers could be eliminated. So apart from this impression in countries with economic problems like us, they also earn money from buying and selling. A new world revolution is being made. In fact, it is necessary to try to be a part of it, absolutely. And also, based on the number, you are a unicorn after game, e-commerce and games in crypto world. Right now, Turkey has unicorns. This is great, and we need to appreciate it. And what do we do from there? What do we think in terms of taxation as a state? What we are trying to do? Do we really want to abandon it? Do we not? Don't we want any more unicorns? What do you think about these issues? Well, when it comes to regulation, yes, we have a lot of responsibilities. Therefore, in order for us to fulfill these responsibilities, we need to make some investments for the technology, and you need to have a team, you need to have a perspective. Yes, of course, it is very much natural by the regulation to uh, bring some barriers for us, but on the other hand, there are very serious expectations from the regulator. But at the very end, they are human like you and I. In other words, it is not easy to predict what will happen in 3 to 5 years from now, and it's like trying to regulate internet in the mid 1990s. Therefore, we have to find a very good balance. In other words, we need to broader the framework to open up space for the development of the sector, but also put some barriers to prevent possible mistakes here. And in fact, there is no advanced legal regulation in the world at this moment, but I think that Turkey has a great potential in front of herself, because the rivals of the Istanbul Financial Center are the centers that have started this business, which I have just given the examples in the banking sector 300 years ago, like New York, London, Frankfurt, Tokyo. So it's obviously a little harder to be competitive on that side, but we have two advantages in new generation financial services. One of them is that Turkey has dynamic young population, its population with a high adaptation to technology, and on the other hand, the fact that technologies such as cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and big blockchain remove the limits and borders, and you can work with individuals directly, just as the internet has lifted all the borders in service. We have many applications on our mobile phones, and we do not know which one is produced in which country. Some of them was produced in China, some of them is produced in Brazil, and some of them is from America, for instance. Yes, exactly. We don't even know where it is, and now the same thing is approaching for the finance. Therefore, in Turkey and in some other countries, in terms of regulation, we might have some concerns like, oh, assets in Turkey is going to leaving us, but it's like a bucket of water at the seaside. Let's protect ourselves. No one spills it, no one takes it. In other words, we have a huge sea ahead of us. If we can offer the right products and services in the right way, I think that with the global achievements of Turkish brands that will emerge from here, billions of dollars of investment in the country, foreign capital, or Istanbul Finance Center will be a global center in the field of new generation financial services. Therefore, I hope that all the stakeholders of the sector will clearly understand this opportunity and take appropriate steps accordingly. Of course, this is not just something to be expected from the public. There are many duties that can fall on different stakeholders, that fall on the private sector. That's why I believe we can talk about a much different point together. Of course, when you look at the top list, you can see unicorns from America and China and England, but among Turkey, I'm really worried about that opportunity, especially financial center. There is also the Islamic finance. So I think we can bring everything in this center. I think we should not reject this. Yes, exactly. I think Bitcoin is like the internet. I mean, after that, many cryptocurrencies were issued. You know, some of them are providing good value propositions. Some of them are successful. Some of them are not successful. Some of them that we see successful might fail in the future. But in a sense, I think we can achieve the same thing through blockchain and Bitcoin, just as internet has opened up a space for countries in general. So Google or YouTube that will come out of Turkey in 2020, which can have a global impact, is not easy. But if a technology started 12 to 13 years ago, if there are Turkish institutions pave their way, when there is a young population who are keen on these new technologies, and when we have the capital to invest, we can take positive steps for us, and it can create global impact. Even with Istanbul-based or Turkey-based capital, we can also attract foreign capital to Turkey. Finance is disrupted in this way, and why don't we do this from Turkey? So this is a new area, this is the new perspective emerging, and from time to time I talk this with my friend, why the stock exchanges are closed on Friday, or why you have to wait for 3 days to buy stock and give the money when you buy a stock in Nasdaq even in the USA. So therefore, this change, this transformation is coming very quickly, and I can see it as a person who has experienced both sides more or less. Therefore, these times of change are also important times to seize the opportunity. When you say let everything settle down, it gets a little late anyway. Thank you very much. Well, one last thing, then we can wrap it up. Because we have coffee conversation, we talk for a long time. These are really important deep topics. Turkey also needs this kind of deep topics as well, but it's against the philosophy of the business, according to some people. What do you think? There are the stable coins, etc. Of course, frankly, I mean, I always place Bitcoin in a different place because it is decentralized, it is anonymous, there is no owner for it, it's an incredible value. We said this in the most recent event. There may be some companies or institution or a person behind the cryptocurrencies that we consider decentralized in various cryptocurrencies or the value proposition that they present. Therefore, Bitcoin is at a totally different place, just like the internet. But new applications and websites will be like this as they were in the early days of the internet. There will be unsuccessful ones among them. There will be with bad intentions. There will be some very successful ones. But frankly, it is not possible for us to understand these with a magic stick as of this moment. But the important thing here is that to look to the future with sustainable business models. When I look at both sides, that is both traditional finance and technology, one of the main problems I see is when you do something contrary to either of them, it turns into a problem in the Bitcoin world or the crypto money blockchain, because sometimes we criticize finance, but with rules written for centuries with blood and tears, the same as aviation, like civil aviation. Therefore, I think that structures are against the general main principles of finance that are based only on technology or rejecting technology as it is and imposing certain things only from the point of view of traditional finance are unsustainable. Therefore, the successful ones will be projects that can bring together the general principles of finance, international rules, and as a result, create simple value propositions for the user. There will be those who try this in stable coins and will try it in the future, but my main suggestion is that once the users buy something, users should never buy or sell without knowing and understanding what they're buying. Let's understand what it is and how it works. Then next part is getting a little easier. Well, actually, you summarize it very clearly and beautifully. This sector is related to blockchains, which is the best area for our people to read, understand, and be global. Actually, we could talk about it more and more, but the subject is really broad. So in 2023, in Forum Istanbul 2023, we can talk about it in detail. Let's see what will happen in the meantime. We will live and see with excitement. Well, yes, we are waiting. The action movie is not over. We already have it. It doesn't end. Yes, that is correct. Thank you very much.
Sayın Selçuk Ergin ve Sayın
Mr.
Özgür
Selçuk Erdin and Mr. Özgür Güneri, thank you very much for your wonderful speech. And the last session of today will be Coopetition, the new strategy for the banks and fintechs. New generation banking or digital banking is spreading rapidly in the world. How will the sector be affected by the fintech enterprises?
telekom operatörleri büyük parakende zincirleriyle sektördeki değişiklikler nasıl bir ivme kazanacak?
Telecom operators, large retail chains which will want to obtain the digital bank license started to be issued by the BRSA as of January the 1st, 2022. Will it create momentum for the sector? What are the implications for the industry that the loan customers of digital banks consist only of financial consumers and SMEs? How will the market achieve fair competition conditions and transform the ecosystem with the payment and e-money regulation and information system Communique that entered into force? How is Fintech transforming the economies and societies in emerging markets? How will the blockchain industry exceeding $67 billion by 2027 change the Fintech ecosystem? While decentralized finance and digital banks are on the rise, what are the strategies that should be followed to prepare traditional financial institutions for the future and adapt to innovations? How will decentralized finance transform commercial financial services, especially for SMEs? What are the decentralized autonomous organization? How do they work and how will they change the world of financial services? How will blockchain transform cross-border payments and resource smart contracts? What are embedded banking and fintech solutions? In the field of open banking, how can it be possible to increase the transaction speed and maneuverability of banks through innovation and cooperation? So we are looking for certain answers to these questions. And as a moderator of this session, I would like to invite Mr. Şeref Oğuz, the chairman of the editorial board of Dünya newspaper, the CEO of NeoHub, Gürhan Çam, and Dr. Çağla Gülşen Kardeş, founding board member of Blockchain Women, Ms. Şebnem Elif Kocaoğlu Ulbrich, founder of Contextual Solutions, and Barbara Suygun, CEO of Max Bank. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Well, I wish a good afternoon to the Forum Istanbul audience and the guests. Of course, it is also an advantage for me to talk about these matters here because we as a Dünya newspaper are going all around the world and there are so many questions that are being asked. Of course, since we are in the cradle of information and knowledge, we are seeking for the answers. A good qualified and quantified response is necessary of such questions. And that is the reason why we want to learn from the most competent people of this area and create a value about this. Our guests have been announced, And in the first session, I'm going to be starting with the basic questions for 10 minutes, and then we'll be completing it in 5 minutes after this first round. Sophocles, in the 1500 before Christ, no discovery of human being has been as bad as money, but is as much as needed. And of course, monetary issues are constantly changing, finances are changing. We were talking about in the past of coins, plastics, cryptos, and right now, I suppose there are 90,500 cryptos. There is a stock exchange of $1.2 trillion right now in the market. And also, I would like to tell you a certain development. There is an issue called metaverse. Whenever there's a new concept, then immediately the experts just come out. And I think that this is a malinformation. So that means that for years, this issue about metaverse was also been expected, and their attitude towards it is as if they have known it for years and years. So everybody is saying something about it, the metaverse. So wherever you touch that, it is of the elephant. You know, somebody put the elephant in the dark room, and people get inside. They touch the elephant. The one says that one touches the tail of the elephant, and it is the first of all, etc. And people say something always about that elephant. But right now we are at the dawn of a cryptocurrency. And metaverse on the other side has also is also a wind of lies, and we're going to be talking about these conceptual issues. And from the point of monetary issues, I suppose the first boiling point is this, I believe, because I remember in the 1960s, it is said in the newspapers that an electronic brain is coming. They didn't actually know the terminology computer at that period of time, which is bilgisayar in Turkish. Later on, we have the ATMs, and I remember that the first one was built in the Istiklal Street. It could be only opened during the office times of the banks. But now, when we talk about technology and finances, the best sector is the banking sector, actually, and the fintechs, I suppose. And what we're talking about today is a fintech, the finance technologies right now in this interval. And why I'd like to ask the question according to the flow in my list, I would like to ask the first question to Mr. Gürhan Çam. Amongst the questions, though, it is asked that about how will the fintechs convert the economies of the people? This is a new issue for us, and it's also a little bit confusing. Now there's a new way, there's a new road in which finances and technology is also coming together, but there are also some people who are trying to go with the old shoes, and it is a little bit confusing. So what happens now? If we're talking about the opportunities that are coming up, what can we take as a lesson or knowledge in certain areas, and which areas are we superior, and where are we a little bit more lucky, I can say. So thank you very much. It's a nice but a hard question, and it's a really broad question. And we need to be tackling about the global issues in that manner. By the way, we have listened to BtcTurk. It's also, they were talking about the last 13 years and very serious issues, actually. Maybe it took your attention, maybe not. But I have learned a lot of experiences. The fintech concept, I think we shouldn't actually put it into certain frameworks. And I'm actually an old banker. I have initiated my career within Bank MT, and I made digital banking as well. In the last 2 years, I have we have established a Neo Hub, a part of DenizBank. So how can we explain fintech? So we have to be staying away from certain frameworks, as I told you before. It is quite obvious that it is consisting of two terminologies, finance and technology. So we can do it reversely. We can call it techfin as well, when technology is compromised with finances. So while we are separating them, so small companies are called fintechs, or companies such as Google or telecom operators are called as techfins. Now, the fintech concept is not a concept that was first started and initiated in Turkey. It was born in the United States. And the reason why it gave birth in the States is because the American banking system was not giving a good service. And as a Turkish banking system, and the bankers are really good compared to many countries. And I'm sure that Barbara is going to be talking about this as well. And he's also one of the best bankers. But right now, he's a general director of a bank in abroad. So as a Turkish banking system, we are really very much developed in that manner. Those that are lagging behind, like the United States and Europe, their fintechs could actually grow faster, and they have opened themselves up much more compared to other countries. And that's the reason why, as a first birth, we have seen it in the States. For instance, it took 4 days to actually send money. There were such days in the States, and this is something that we cannot actually understand, because we could actually send it in seconds or in minutes. So that is the reason why we're talking about periods that take terms that take 4 days. And in digital systems, there were certain areas that were lagging behind. The students wanted to take loans, but when they came to the banks, they couldn't get and they couldn't actually meet their needs. The bankers couldn't understand what they want. And it was actually a financial need, and in areas where there's a need, but the banks couldn't actually meet those needs, financial technological companies have been opened up. When we take a look at the websites of the big banks in the United States, we can see some certain features like spin-off companies, and we have seen also some certain visuals like that. And then it came to Europe, to the United Kingdom, and then to Far East, and China is also another area, but it's also Barbaros's expertise. So in that manner, big tech funds are right now very well organized. Now, what is the situation right now in Turkey? The banking system of Turkey is really good. It's very much developed. And as financial services, we can actually touch our clients in a very wide umbrella immediately, and we can immediately understand them. However, despite of the fact that we are so good, fintech brings up a lot of opportunities. So if I wrap it up a little bit more, now a financial need is combined with technology, and it is actually brought to the end user. It can be regarded as a banking transfer, or it can be actually a Bitcoin is also a transfer need. But when it was so simple in America, it was a little bit more complex in Turkey. So fintechs are actually competitors of banks, and their major competitors are the banks, because the banks can also easily move and be mobile, and they are big companies, institutions. So that means that they have to be larger. The fintechs in Turkey, according to my opinion, compared to Europe, is more innovative and following the novelties. So because they're taking our clients, and on the other side, they are bringing up new technologies and giving a more compact technology to the end user. And so that I can actually explain it better. So let's say that there is a client that wants to open up a new business. Let's say that person is graduated from a university, he is an engineer and wants to open up an establishment. And in order to do his business, of course, there are a lot of things and documents, and registrations and accounting programs. and on the other hand, the human resources programs, the first registries, the capitals, controls, monetary transfer, etc. There are so many things that they have to do in order that they can become a company. So as a banks, we do not actually present everything to that person. But the fintech person can come and say that, okay, I am going to meet all the needs of a person who is going to create a new business. It can be a human resources package, it can be a registration package, and I am going to ease their life. I have created such a package, and when they get that service from me, they do not have to think about anything else, they just have to think about their clients. So that was it. And as a result of this, of course, on the financial and non-financial need services are met. And Turkey is more fertile in that manner because the fintechs can easily merge with these business models, and they can actually become married with the banks. And that's the reason why more capable companies occur. So I cannot say this for every company, but we are looking to the fintechs as corporate, as collaborative companies. And we are bringing up our technologies together, and then we are also using their platforms that they're bringing up. And we also put our capabilities and open it up to them. So it's a win-win model, and both sides are earning in that matter, and a new business model is occurred. But more than that, as for NeoHub, our basic strategy and the basic nourishment area is that from Turkey to abroad, we want to export fintechs. We like to do that, and I hope that in the next period of time, we can export these abilities and capabilities. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. As a matter of fact, when I listened to all what you are saying during the weekend as a Dünya newspaper in Sapanca, we were debating about the transformative leadership, and one of the concepts was this. There was a decentralization and centralization, what we were talking about. And as finance says, a decentralized finance. So we can actually make this terminology in Turkish a little bit smaller as alphabets, but maybe you have actually found a concept about this as terminology, but maybe we can find a better one. All right, there was a center and the environment was everywhere. This is changing all around the world, and globalization brought up this to us. And on the other hand, with the Russian and Ukraine war, the localization and regionalization is also becoming quite prominent. So the center is everywhere, the environment is in one localization. So actors like you and users as us are look for another paradigm. And so there's one certain concept that I want to burden the matter up, and here I come. I'd like to ask a question to Ms. Dr. Çağla Gülşenkarde. She is the Blockchain Women's Association the executive board member. So decentralized finance, and while digital banks are raising, in order to actually prepare yourselves to all the innovations and novelties, what are the strategies to follow? And how the SMEs are going to make that transformation? Because one of the questions that the SMEs are constantly talking about is this. I couldn't actually respond to that. Maybe you can answer this. And let me make an also a small addition. And I'm also an instructor in Istanbul Bilgi University. And again, I'm dealing also with different technologies. And I'm also following the agenda quite closely. And about your question, as you told before, when we talk about decentralized finances, first let's us understand what is in theory and what is in practice. Actually, it's an easy story. In our social life and in our business operations, years ago, we have explored the data, and then we called it big data. And there are so much data that has been produced, we cannot actually store them any longer. And then that is the reason why we face challenges called as scandals. And on the other hand, the people who are coming from cryptography, if we can actually manage these data in a fragmented way, can we actually intervene any kind of a loss or hacking? And at that period of time, we have found crypto. So even money in that area can be fragmented in a secure way. Can we actually manage this? This was a question, and we couldn't do it. And
blok zincir teknolojisi demeye başladık.
we started calling it the blockchain technology. So how can we actually monetize it in a fragmented area? So we have smart agreements with coded, programmed agreements and contracts that we are making, and we learned to do it, and now we implemented it. The Bitcoin technology came with a great actually strength, but it was teaching us how to actually work on this in a decentralized way. It was possible, but now, when we talk about decentralized finance, it is something that is way beyond monetary transfer. Because when we talk about finances, we're talking about financial sector services, and it's not only about transfer. So as a financial transfer, in the conventional ecosystem, whichever product there is, they all can be brought up to the blockchain technology, and all the financial services can be done in a decentralized way, as we do in the previous conventional ways. As you told, DeFi, decentralized financial finance, it is called. DeFi is red. And what did I say? So many services and products to be managed on blockchain on a fragmented way. These data can be managed. What does it bring up? So, and Bitcoin is such a system, like many blockchains, technologies. It's open, transparent, and everybody is going to see that. That doesn't mean like that. There are blockchains that are actually that are locked as well, and there's also other systems, a DAO or something that is not bounded to one person, that is managed by societies or communities that do not know each other, which is called DeFi. This is a theoretical point of view. The data, the financial services can be done in a distributed way. So this is the way how we approach theoretically. On the other side, there is also something else that we need to debate. It's also something that we are very much used to, the traditional financial systems like industry, this way of approaching to things. And Mr. Özgür has also underlined it. It is 300, 400 years of a history. The experiences and the knowledge learned and also the rules have been written. So basically, it's a regulation. So a decentralized financial ecosystem on the other side is something else, because there's no regulation here. There are no rules or regulation right now. But there's a reality that the softwares always say that the code is the regulation. That's very true. We can take the code as a regulation, but that code, on the other hand, cannot be regarded as a regulation or a code that we know in our conventional lives. In a distributed or in a decentralized financial services, yes, there is. We shouldn't actually check out or look for a regulation. The governance is constantly changing. And when we go to the conventional life, to this, there's something quite different here, because the manager is also decentralized. We are not only talking about the code or the financial operations at all. What we are talking about is a DeFi, whatever the DeFi application is. Let's say that there is a Chala bank in this world, and there are people who are working there. They have regulations and there are laws, and the Chala bank is doing it for you. But on the other side, this establishment has also intrinsic processes in which there are actually advisory boards or executive boards that are checking out what's going inside. So in decentralized areas, we shouldn't actually look out for this as well. So the token owners are actually have the eligibility to vote, just like an executive board has a voting right. Okay, there are codes, and the codes are working as a regulation in a distributed way. Okay, but if there is a necessity to change, or if there's an advice coming up, then as I said before, those who have the eligibility to vote, doesn't matter for where they are or who they are, can vote, and a systematic change can be done, and the protocol can change or managed. So the regulative area and the governance area can change. And of course, we can make actually certain service from this implication, or if there are wallets or some certain rules for this, etc. There are plenty of actually types of this. And the financial implications, which are quite distributed, then in certain operational levels, all the banks and all the systems shouldn't be actually depleted at all. From a technological point of view, now we are talking about petty cooperation. So technologies
interoperability'sine bakılır. Yani birlikte çalışabilirliğe.
Yes, we checked interoperability. So in one system you do a job very well, and you get all the systems in another system manually and operate it differently. If you just has this such a system, if you create a system like this, then it is going to fail. For the systems to work properly, different systems should cooperate with one another. This is interoperability in technology. First and foremost, we need to understand that literacy should increase, knowledge, information level should increase. We need to understand what it means. As the knowledge, information level increases, and when the regulation is harmonized, banks and fintech companies, blockchain-based DeFi organizations, they could be also institutions and DAOs, doesn't matter. We need to find a way to accelerate our operations. And this is the only way, I think, because you have already stated that blockchain-based financial systems, blockchain fintech solutions are compared with banks and fintech technologies. 2 years ago in Forum Istanbul, we were comparing with one another whether there would be competition or one would defeat the other one. We were discussing this. In terms of sustainability, blockchain technology in the very beginning, financial technologies and traditional fintech solutions promise more sustainable solutions. We know this. 3 years ago, we were discussing this, then we stopped that. Of course, they could be adapted to global block systems, banking systems. It is borderless, limitless, fast and cheaper solutions. This was what we were talking about. Today, we have to be discussing something else. Like you have mentioned, human beings, all the humanity should have already built this structure, which is the new worlds like metaverse platforms. This is not a new concept. Actually, in 1990s, I studied engineering and Snowpler. This is like book written by a physicist, but this is the conceptual definition of metaverse and VR glasses when it is defined like this, but this is not relevant with the very core of metaverse. So in 1992, Neil Stephenson wrote this book, and I already read it, and he was already mentioning how the codes are broken. If we talk about finance, we have to understand one thing. When we start talking about metaverse, generally we heard this in the um, society. It is not because Facebook changed its name into Meta. So including Facebook or some other perspective holders in this sense can realize 1990s metaverse dream by enabling having an economy internally. So DeFi is going to be much more important. This is what we can say. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, actually, human mind enlarges itself and but behaviors control our lives. Our minds are changing first and foremost, developing itself on the sci-fi issues, but 150 years ago, Jules Verne wrote a countdown in his book. That's why when we were going to the moon, we were doing this countdown. First and foremost, people imagine the future, then they realize their targets. And on the deceased Ussal president time, we were opening ourselves towards different directions. And prior to him, no one knows about Cambio or some other concepts. So then we voluntarily became homos economos. We got to know these realities, but right now this requires another language. It's beyond all the calculation methods because metaverse and blockchain, DeFi, decentralized finance, all these concepts have not been understood yet, but we are going to internalize them as we talk them further because we are not talking about future. Future has already come, future has already arrived, but it is not distributed equally. As SMEs, as business world, I demand much more than what you get. That's why Forum Istanbul discussions matter a lot. As Prometheus, yes, you can get the fire, but the fire should be distributed. It can only happen by having the equal and appropriate languages. And Şebnem Elif Kocaoğlu, I'd like to give the floor to you, and I'd like to ask this question to you, if you allow me. So, fintech banking creates huge transformation, not in one area, but in many areas. Blockchain and technologies, embedded technology, embedded banking. When we have a look at the developments in Europe, I'd like to ask this question: what is the solutions of fintech and embedded banking? So what are the investments on the trend of embedded banking? Google Pay, Amazon, and PayPal, what kind of an environment are these creating in the banking sector? Because you have touched upon a great thing. Code is a rule, yes, but we haven't seen the rule makers against this democracy. I don't know, but there's again a new concept like algorocracy, because in democracy you know who are you going to vote for, but in this algorocracy, who is preferring this, who is changing my directions, who is actually ruling my life. We don't see who is making these algorithms. This is the dark world, and in terms of lightening it up, I need to ask this question. So what can you say? Thank you very much, Mr. Sharif. Prior to embedded banking, if you allow me, I'd like to say a few words about what you have mentioned. Yes, I agree with you in these new terms, developments in banking, in terms of these concepts. We have to really discuss these terminologies. We have to do this kind of discussions more frequently. As of 2013 and 14, I've been involved in this sector. In 2017, I was writing my dissertation thesis about fintech, and I was in a publishing house. They asked me about my dissertation thesis. They said, don't write such a dissertation thesis because no one would read this, but whenever I'm in taxi in Istanbul, even taxi drivers talk about neo-banking and some altcoins, bitcoins. I think this is really important. Right now, there are fintech columns on the newspapers. This is incredible and this is indispensable. How to train the society is another question mark. So for that reason, I believe this kind of conferences and meetings are really important. So in terms of embedded banking, topic that you have already stated, Gülhan Bey has entered a great has given us a great introduction about the evolution of this market as of 2008, and embedded banking is the new version of the traditional banking because fintech is the new way of the evolution in the traditional bank. And Gürhan Bey doesn't say that I am a banker. Now people say I'm an innovation expert, I'm a fintech expert and blockchain expert. There are no bankers. Branches are getting closer, getting close, and in the future it's going to be even much more like this. And banks are making investments on technology enterprises, and in Turkey there are many examples like this, and this is the same in Europe. Germany follows the trends behind other countries, but even in Germany, banks make investments on technology investments, and generally they employ software developers, not bankers. And software developers are not having this great harmony with banks, but they are working affiliated to them. So old world and the new world can be brought together at the very end. New culture is trying to be created. And fintech is the new version of the traditional banking. So when it comes to the embedded banking, this is for the consumers who are born into digital world, and this is in order to meet their needs. So today's consumers don't want to wait at all. We do not talk about 1990s banking like the terms and technologies. We were undersigning every documents as if they were like encyclopedias, but today's customers want the applications to work properly, smoothly. When they send money, immediately they want this money transfer to be delivered to the receiver side. It should be seamless, fast, and smoothless because this is the way for the customers and consumers. So this is embedded banking. Banking without banks, fintech structuring for banks is a new trend right now. Without going to the physical banks, with bank applications, without even entering the websites of the banks, we can integrate banking applications to the shopping applications, and this is embedded banking. Maybe we have just heard this terminology, but in the 1990s, in the beginning of 2000, we were acquainted with this terminology. When you were buying a e-ticket, there is this insurance service directed to us. This is embedded insurance. This is not other than this. Because in your shopping application, before that shopping experience is over, when you are still attached to this process, banking service could also cover the insurance service that you want to get. So in a seamless and smoothless way, you can finalize what you are needed to do. E-commerce companies and retailers, wholesale companies have this fintech trend. When you buy a sofa, a chair, or a TV, for instance, before you haven't paid the TV money or sofa money, if you want to get a loan for the sofa or the TV that we would buy, before the processes are concluded, we could make application for the loan. This is embedded banking. This is banking applications without banks. This is really suitable for consumers. So within 10 to 15 minutes, they complete shopping processes and without detaching themselves from the process within the loyalty frames in a very suitable manner, they can finalize their banking services. And this is really important for banks and financial companies and for companies who are providing embedded banking. There are great advantages because they can decrease their costs, and customers are always attached to the system and the process. They can keep the data of the customer in their own system. These are the advantages. If you were to look at the disadvantages of these systems, this accelerated shopping, exchange, trading process could be a bit troublesome for less literate consumers. Because sometimes when customers do not investigate whether they have finance to buy this sofa, for instance, just before thinking it thoroughly, they just make the application. So there's a disadvantage like this, but this is the direction that the fintech and the banks go in the future. And I believe in the future, again, many banks, many companies will be directing themselves to this direction, and there's going to be many different financial services in the banking applications. We will see it increasingly in the future. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I guess sometimes I am muted. Okay, this embedded banking, you have defined it very well, and we have internalized it very well. So if I understood this, I believe SMEs have definitely understood this. So this is also very crucial for us, for customers, consumers, because we can control our own systems. So I hope that we could some embedded conscience in our lives so that we won't consume what more than we produce. Well, fourth and the last speaker of our session is Barbaros Uygun. As we always say that we are good, we are this, we are that, and we need this comparison. So in that respect, when we say digital banking and digital transformation, what can you say for this chat discussion? Because transformation is the topic of many panels, conferences, and this is how I define the transformation. So leaving past behind for a better future. So we need inventory of the past days, and we need an imagination and a direction for future. The banks are in big revolution and transformation. We have to leave certain things behind in our past, and we have to be looking at the future. Sometimes we pay too much money for financial services, and we spend too much money. We had interview serials in London with Bill Gates, and we were talking with them, and Bill Gates was taking our attention to one thing. And of course, yes, technology is at the core of your corporation, and if that's the case, then you will see the increase on your efficiencies. But based on my assumption, it is up to 15 to 20%. But if you just emerge communication, business, and knowledge processes and turn them into a digitalized world, I guess you can't hear me. Okay, do you hear me? Yes. Yes, we can hear you. So if you turn your business and communication processes into digital world and embed it with technology, then the efficiency and productivity of your company can rise up to 80-90%. But we don't do this in Turkey. So technology, if it is serving our primitive side, then we have to fight against more equipped primitive structures. But if you are curious about vertical pyramids, vertical towers, irrespective of this centralization, then you can also create digital tyrants for your corporation. So I think the most rational user of the technology is banking sector, and I believe there could be many more things that you can say to us. So what is happening in the world right now? So what is the mistakes that we have made, and what are the minds that we need to be stepping on? What are the dangers waiting for us? Thank you very much. So up until this time, I have really enjoyed this session. Well, specific to the banking, and by the way, this is one of the very developed sectors of Turkey. Like you have mentioned, this digital transformation sector can lighten the other sectors' digitalization process. So first and foremost, I'd like to mention one thing. In banking, there is full digital neobanks, and also these banks emerged after 1990s. And in the 2010-2015, second generations of neobanks emerged. And with the banking regulatory form, there is full license for digital banking applications. I think this is really important for the very developed Turkish banking sector. I think this is a huge step for us, and I'd like to emphasize the further details of it later on. So I'd like to connect it to Gürhan Bey's comments. He talked about fintech exportation. That is correct. There are a lot of values that could be exported to other countries as Turkey. So if we turn our faces to banking sector, let's say we have exported banking sector to other countries, and also engineering labor force are exported. I can also give you an example. ING Austria mobile infrastructure has been developed by Turkish engineers. I'm in Hong Kong right now, and the bank here, Knox Bank here, works with Turkish engineers, and we are currently having infrastructure work so that we can export software from Turkey. In the beginning of this session, you said that we need to also talk about our responsibilities as well. Yes, this is a very valid and developed banking sector. We were raised in this developed banking sector. We have very good banks, and their digital capacities, their digitalization, transformation, and the investment that they collect from their investment are at least one generation above the traditional banks in Europe, in many countries in Europe. Even today, FX process clearing or money transfer clearing can't be done on a daily basis and the same day. So we have come a long way, huge distance in Turkish banking sector, but there is something which is still in our hearts for our seniors as well. We haven't exported banks. Yes, regional banks were exported to other countries thanks to some important investors like Ferit Şahenk, Mr. Özin. Regional banks were exported, but it was very limited. However, so at this very point, digital bank establishment is really crucial. There is this important difference of digital banks from traditional banks. Infrastructures, as of their designs, are related to embedded and open banks, cloud systems, and fintech corporations. They are suitable as of their nature. And inter-countries, based on the country's own future, it could change. Infrastructures could be ported in between the countries up to 80 to 90%. So an infrastructure settled in a country could be exported to another country up to 50 to 80% possibility. And this is 5 times higher in terms of book value of the banks, balance sheet value of the banks on total. So we have to find the correct portfolio here. And if I'm to underline this fact that Turkey is exporting the brains, I hope we are going to export fintech. I'd like to underline what Gürhan has mentioned, but along with the digital bank development, banking brands could also be exported to European countries primarily, and it should be attached importance as of the design steps. It should be incentivized in this respect. Local solution production is an alternative, but in the same license, we can also produce more global solutions by having much more investments. Okay, in what aspects is it important? Classical banks, yes, in all around the world, 30,000 banks are trying to create digital transformation. Some of them do it moderately, some of them do it very badly, some of them do it really good. However, the business model does not change, and there are 300 digital banks, and there is a huge change. It is not branchless bank application here. This is from edge to edge, whole digitalized sense, self-service based for the end user infrastructure banks that we are talking about. So there is no other channel. This is mobile. So it gives this advantage. Infrastructures, once they are settled, it is easier to scale them up. As the customer number increases, cost base increase happens very slowly. So the cost per customer becomes negative as the margin increases. What does it mean? It means that we can reach more customers with less capital, and we can take our services to SMEs and more individual corporate customers because the service cost is very low. Approximately, I can give you different examples from different markets, but based on my information, let me give you this answer. It is up to one fifth less cost is possible. It could also be up to one to tenth of a less cost could be mentioned. So it could provide us better solutions, more financial solutions to higher number of population. And it's going to happen in Turkey. This transformation is going to happen in Turkey. A new era is going to start. When the second generation banks are established, they're open to natural cooperations and partnerships. So this creates two-way cooperations. For instance, the bank that I have managed has 6 technology partners and half of it is fintech.
Dünyadan bulup kendimize entegre etme şansımız var. Dolayısıyla fintechlere bir platform oluşturuyor. Bu birinci
That's
açı.
why it creates
İkinci açı konuştuk.
an environment for the fintechs.
Yani esasında ben de bir örnek vereyim.
And on the other hand, there is also another issue here. For instance, the customer buys a house and has an experience of mortgage. And nobody thinks that they want to have a loan experience. They want to have an experience of buying a home for themselves and for the family. This banking is not another experience, but it is something invisible in all the things that you want to do in your life. It is actually what we try to do is to be invisible in the backstage. And on the other side, the telecom companies, the technology companies, the insurance companies, and all the retailers build up great amounts and enormous amounts of money to have a customer experience. And later on, they want to keep the customers and want to have an income per the customer. And since the customer also wants to have an experience that's also very valuable for the bank. Even though it's centralized, we are talking about a decentralized banking system, even though the infrastructure is not like that. And as for the experience of the customer, the finance can actually reach out to more people, and the experience can be better and more transparent. Hence the case, the customer and the end user can manage its own finances. So that is the reason why it's a widespread issue. Well, thank you very much. We are almost at the end of the time, the time that has been landed to us. Now, in the second round, let us actually talk about things that we have missed. data bank and technology has actually become more clearer for us. Of course, the client, the customer, is our basic values. And is there anything that you would like to add up? Because we are at the end of the time given to us. Mr. Gürhan Çam, the floor is yours, sir. Yes, first and foremost, and I'm very happy to hear that there is a new infrastructure that you're building up in Turkmenistan, Barbaros. These are very valuable indeed. And let me talk a little bit about metaverse. Actually, you wonderfully explained the metaverse. You gave the example of the elephant. I wanted to use it too while defining elephant. Yes, and metaverse, we're in such a position right now. We do not know what is going to happen. We do not know what we're going to do. But on the other side, I believe that metaverse also cured to the fact that there is an unfair income distribution, and there are some certain that there are some certain feelings and emotions that the poor cannot actually reach. It's like actually reaching to a certain type of an emotion or a satisfaction or a pleasure that they couldn't actually live in this life, and that's the reason. That's how it occurs. We're going to see what type of investments are going to be made. The metaverse may be totally gone as well, but we can see also metaverses as countries as well. Maybe they will be having passports to pass through, and metaverse will survive, I believe, if we cannot solve the problem of income, unfair income distribution. So this is a potential to solve the unfair income issue. When we take a look to the future of our children, like 20, 30 years later, and I guess all the things that we are talking today right now, we might be living certain things that is far, far away what we are talking today. And whatever we do, we shouldn't lose our humanity and a love to another. Yes, thank you very much. Definitely. Things that is excluding people cannot be survived, cannot survive, of course. And Dr. Çağla Gülşen kardeş, the floor is yours, ma'am. Okay, let me just go further of what Mr. Gürhan has said. When we're talking about sustainability focus on human, the metaverse platforms, the decentralized financial systems structurized over blockchains. I think they're all inclusive. What I mean about this, right now in the World Bank, when people say that bankless world, and when we calculate the bankless situation in the world, as for the elder people, we see that actually we are consuming the products that the young people have. So they also need financial needs, of course. I can open you up an account if you're elder than 18 years of age. And together with the metaverse platforms, inclusiveness is very much important. I don't think that there will be any age restrictions or locational restrictions. The most important thing here is economy. When there's economy, then we should talk about these matters. In metaverse, producing a cube, the producer economy and the ownership economy is not available in the world we're living in. So ownership here. And for the management, especially in the decentralized financial implementation, this matter becomes even more prominent. And as for the last words, the blockchain market and the ecosystem numbers, as you say, that there's a $1.2 trillion of a crypto currency right now.
Uygulamaları, NFT
And
uygulamaları.
there are also NFT implementations, metaverse platforms. And when we take it all together, actually the amount will be more than $100 trillion. So this economy that cannot be managed by the governments should be taken a little bit more serious. You're very right. If there is a $235 trillion of a debt right now, and if there's a 20 trillion of an additional money that has been imprinted, then I suppose that we are awaited for a very interesting future. There might be breakdowns, and maybe I think that it would be great to talk about these matters. And I think that these issues are the intellectual farms or farms, I suppose. Yes. Şebnem Elif Kocaoğlu, what would you like to add? Actually, we have been talking about many things already, but if we continue to the matters of the theme of competition, now two softwares can come up together and can establish a bank. Of course, there are wonderful things about this. There are things, a great amount of a product umbrella here. And profitability, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow the profitability or productive issues. We should first and foremost understand that we are, as Turkey, are financial illiterate. So that is the reason why all the products and services, financial literacy is definitely necessary. And on the other side, for those who do not have a financial accession, then I think that will be a more unpopular mass here. But what type of a value can we give to those people? This is also something that we need to be talking about. Could be in entrepreneurship or could be in banks. In the short term, they might be facing some certain challenges, but in the long term, they will definitely win. So may I understand it like this? I can remember the late Turgut Özal, who was former Prime Minister of Turkey and also the president. He said that if we had $1 billion, then Turkey would go ahead way many countries. But we had millions of computers, of course, but unfortunately, Turkey couldn't actually fly here because we had many barriers and interventions.
Bunu kullanacak olan insanların eğitimine ve gelişimine harcamış olsaydık.
And if we could actually spend that amount of money for the training of the people, then things would be much more different. And without further ado, Mr. Barbaros Uygun, I would like to close this session with you. Well, let me just say that financial literacy is very much important. Of course, we're talking about the members of the families, but what we need most and what is lacking behind is the SMEs. This is the reason why we need to give importance to this area, and I suppose that it will be very fruitful for the SMEs as well. And well, thank you very much for your attention. Mr. Gürhan Çam, Dr. Çağla Gülşen Kardeş, Şebnem Elif Kocaoğlu, and Barbaros Uygun. Thank you very much to you. And within this context, this session, I hope, if we have produced something very beneficial, we'll be more than happy. And I would like to thank you very much. And I'm closing the session.
Sayın Şerefoğuz ve tüm panelistlerimize
Distinguished Şerefoğuz, we also would like to thank you and all the panelists. Distinguished participants, for 3 days, we had 6 Turkish coffee chats, and we had 6 different sessions. And we've been talking about the future perspectives in 6 different themes. And we have been together in the 21st Istanbul Forum. And we were, and our theme was the Horizon 2050 towards 2023. I would like to thank our sponsors within this context, And I would like to thank Ussal Holding and also the APS Textile, Denizbank, Green for Growth Fund, Turkish Economic Bank, TSKB, Turkish Bank, and Dünya newspaper, and Bersayıl Edition for their contribution. And for the closing speech, I would like to thank Mr. Ajlan Acar to the floor to make his closing speech. Hope to see you next year. Ms. Ebru, thank you so much. Very distinguished audience, very distinguished guests. On behalf of the Council of Istanbul Forum, I would like to greet you all with my deepest respects. We have completed the 21st Forum Istanbul conferences. I would like to thank to all who have paid their efforts to make this event happen. It was a very pleasurable time that we have passed for 3 days, and I would like to make a brief summary of what has been talked so far. And by the way, in the opening ceremony of this conference, I also would like to thank our Minister of Treasury and Finance, Mr. Nebati as well. And he had a short period of time in his very intense agenda. He had the opportunity to talk and to talk to us about this theme. And I also would like to thank Mr. İsmail Gülle, who is also the president of the Turkish Exporters Assembly. He has underlined the importance of exportation. Their support and also contribution was very valuable. I also would like to thank so much to our exporters family for their contribution to finances in this very hard and difficult period of time. And we had, for the first time, the Turkish coffee sessions, and all the knowledge that has been conveyed was very much important indeed. And these are very important information that we have received that will lead us for a better future. And I also would like to briefly summarize what has been told so far. Of course, the details and will be found in the Forum Istanbul YouTube channels, and you can get more information from the channel. But however, for the preparation of the future, both the academia and also the decision givers, like the ministers, the business world, definitely can evaluate the conclusions in a common table. And there are a lot of issues and things to question and to be debated, which is very much accumulated so far. Of course, we're going to evaluate all these methods in the future. And on the other side, I believe that climate, which I believe is very much striking, we are right now at it's at an alarming point, and climate is going to be a very important issue where we are going to spend a lot of time. Agriculture, water, and food security is one of the greatest risks for our country. From a global point of view, on the other side, drought and the results of it will be the greatest risks. And drought will create, of course, waves of immigration. That is the reason why we need to be spending more time on these issues. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Change is structurized. It is actually advised that the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change should be another institutional body there, because climate change is our priority right now, and that's the reason why we should be debating about that matter as well. Food and also energy prices on the global level is going to rise, and the growth of the growth of the world is going to be squeezed in the next coming 5 years, and that's the reason why we are positioning ourselves in the next coming years that we are going to face a slowing growth, and we should understand it. Another matter here is there is a new polarization period of time that we're entering in. Since the 90s, the globalization concept is right now evolved to a polarized world. The rise of China and also the United States, single polarized world is no longer possible. And of course, taking a look to the numbers as well, for the dominance of the world, a new challenge has been initiated that also will prevail and affects an 8 to 10 years. And according to a study, the GDP ranking, at the first place is China, secondly, India, and the third ranking country is the United States. So in the next coming 30 years, we understand that there will be great changes in the balance of the world. Interestingly, the European Union cannot take place in the top 10 list. So when we think that our exportation is basically made with the European Union, we should be prepared for certain changes. Mobile has to be defined again. There is a benefit based and focused on the user, and that's the reason why in automotive and also in the other certain areas there will be a change. And the Turkish automobile projects, automation projects, gaming, and related projects are going to be very prominent in agile. An agile concept is also put for automotive developments, and the vehicle is also very much important as much as the software is important. And that's the reason why the investment has to be done by our country as well, so that we can become the important players. And on the other hand, we need to be prepared for the carbon regulations and the borders, in particular due to the fact that Turkey is making exportation to the European Union constantly. We need to be very ready for this. The emission trade system has to be involved in our trade. That is the reason why in exportive sectors, the carbon emission advantages areas, we can create a transfer. As for accession to finance, environment, sustainability, and to governments, significant importance have to be given. If you are going to create finances for your next coming investors, environment, sustainability, and governance is very much important to give value to. And
So the law on the climate must be prepared and the priorities should be determined, and the gender equality is the milestone for the long-term development for the society. We have underlined this fact once again, and for the enterprises that are going to provide support for the supply chain is being settled as by Turkish Industry and Development Bank and taxonomy. This concept is going to be also very crucial for our lives. In what aspects, what conditions are going to be determined as green? We have been informed about such a document. In order to make source use more efficiently, we need to produce our own energies, and companies should decrease their carbon footprint. This is one of the most important agenda items for the future. We have written down as a note. International investment funds are changing their credit criteria in line with climate priorities. Companies seeking for finance in our conditions should prepare themselves for this purpose. And there is a great slogan, I have noted it down: without consuming the world, we have to produce for the world. So we would like to thank our Vice Minister Murat Zaman participating in this session. We listened to his valuable presentation. In order for Turkey to be a green production hub, he said that we will be beside our private sector in their steps. And this has given us more hope for future. When it comes to food and agriculture, we listened to a great presentation about indoor farming applications along with AI transportation, AI application in the urban farms. We can reduce source consumption up to 99%. We can increase the source efficiency up to 90. We can reduce the waste on the resources up to 99%, and we can increase the efficiency. And we've seen that there are technologies who are using resource efficiencies, and we believe that those instruments could also be utilized in our country. By 2050, world population will be 10 billions. And in the food production, there is going to be 60% increase. We have to prepare ourselves for this increase. Today there is war between Ukraine and Russia. This hot war environment actually shows us that even if you have money, from time to time, due to certain reasons, you can't reach the food. This is a great indicator that we have all witnessed together. So food security and supply security will be main indicators for the future of our lives. And technology is improving, and technology should be simplified for our farmers to use the technological advancements. And while World Foundation WWF has a certain resource, according to that research, 93% of our water use comes from agricultural purposes. 44 billion cubic meter consumption goes approximately 30 million cubic meter of it goes to agricultural applications. We have to switch into drip irrigation system. It's going to create up to 50% 50% savings, and almost 17 billion cubic meter water could be saved just by switching into drip irrigation. By getting use of AI and machine learning, we can also get use of many more advances of the technology. So here we have to transfer this senior knowledge into technology. In the upcoming years, this will be much more important. In today's sessions, we have listened to metaverse and perception of metaverse in the correct dimension. How to understand metaverse is very crucial. Metaverse, irrespective of the real situation of the person, can enable person to get much more socialized, and this is the wholeness of virtual worlds. This is what we have listened to from our speakers. In the upcoming days, it's going to create an impact over our lives. And in recent years, we have had many regulations. Thanks to these regulations, decentralized finance or invisible embedded or seamless banking services have become really crucial, and in the future they are going to be even visible in our lives. So there is a mass of consumers who want to receive seamless and timeless service. It's going to be higher in the future in number, especially youngsters and children are going to be using technology, and they will be much distant from banking services. They will need technology and finance services, so banking sector should be integrated to new financial services. In the new generation, financial services limits and borders have been eliminated, and this is a great opportunity for young population for our country. Blockchain, decentralized finance services can be helpful for our lives. Full digital neo-banking concept has been taught to us, and we are very much proud that BtcTurk started to provide licenses for the banks. And also in the finance sector, human labor force technology could be exported to our world. However, we have failed exporting banks. So in this respect, exporting digital bank is going to be among top priority targets of our country. Financial literacy must be developed. This is one of our recommendations. For technology, we need to allocate some source. In addition to this source, we have to allocate source for the development and the education of the people. This has been mentioned by the speakers. In 2023, Istanbul is our target, and these are the 22nd of our meetings, and inshallah, hopefully we will realize our targets. And Forum Istanbul is now going its direction under the theme of 2050 horizon. Hopefully next year we can see one another physically, we can have this meeting one-to-one in person, and we can have the chance to get much more socialized. This year we have been also supported by our strategic partners, Turkish Exporters Assembly, and our fashion partners, Turkish Telecom, main sponsors, APS Textile, Denizbank, Green for Growth Fund, Ussal, Türk Economy Bank, Turkey Industrial Development Bank, Turkey İş Bankası. We would like to thank them for their help and support. And at the same time, we would like to thank Dünya Gazetesi for being our sponsor for the live broadcast, and Bersay İletişim Group for being our media communication sponsor and our funding and organizing sponsor, ÖZGÜR Group. We would like to thank them very much. Without them, it couldn't happen in this very long-standing, very successful meeting series. We would like to extend our gratitude to everyone and hope to see you in 2023. And I wish you a very happy, healthy, and enlightened future days. Thank you very much.